Hi, folks. We're Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that's really flying under the radar. It should be getting, I think, headline news. But some of the major retail chains in Australia are installing in selected areas and selected stores, installing some what looks like pretty expensive kit, actually, the various theft mitigation devices. Now, I don't know how well some of these work. There's like special doors that close next to the checkout, so as people walking out, unless they've got a receipt or a docket or something that says they've paid for the things. So these doors can be, or barriers, call them what you like. They're only like maybe 1 meter high, 3 foot high, can be locked by the staff if they think it's someone trying to escape without paying or something. But the reality is that I mean, I can step over it at my height, or jump over it, leap over it if I had to. And any sort of youngish or even minimally fit shoplifter, could do that. So, but there are other sort of things. They're talking about putting extra security guards on, but the security guards aren't really meant to touch or tackle a shoplifter. It's only there as a deterrent to encourage the shoplifter not to shoplift in the first place, rather than to try and do it then get away with it. So even so, various methods have already been tried, and they're kind of not really getting anywhere. And then if you look at these stores where they're installing various, and there are different types of measures and devices and equipment and so on to minimize shoplifting, they're all in high migrant intensive areas, particularly third world migrants, and particularly in areas where, say, a lot of African migrants, Somalis and whatnot, have been brought in. And the shoplifting is, in some of these places, is four times plus what they believe is sort of as they delicately reflect, a slippage or shrinkage baseline. So clearly it's a problem in high migrant areas, but nobody wants to say that, and it can't be said. And even now, even that these retail chains are being quite discreet about it in many ways. There are still allegations of racism. How come you're installing this stuff in an area with lots of black people? It's not because of shoplifting. It's because you're an evil fascist Nazi fucking swastika waving racist. So this is already the dialogue that's running around. But I just wanted to talk generally about the concept of shoplifting. And now I don't know, if you look at, say, the shoplifting in the United States, which is huge, and in black areas, a lot of stores, chains just closing down. They can't do anything about the shoplifting because they'll be called racist. So they just close the shop down in that area that's mostly black. And then there's the counter, the counter propaganda narrative. It's a food desert. We've got to walk, 200 yards to the nearest store, or something like that, or we've got to do one bus ride to get there. So, either way the retail chains go, if they put in serious security measures, then they're going to be accused of being Nazis. If they close the shop, they're going to be accused of being Nazis. So there's no real way out here. If they go to the authorities and say, look, we want more serious policing and detention terms or whatever for people that are apprehended, and we want the police to be more active, then the local authorities, particularly in Democrat-run cities, no, that's racist. We can't do that. So there isn't really a way out here, and like I think, as we see around Africa and around the world, so in the case of black communities, they're quite happy to take the benefit of the now, here and now, without thinking about tomorrow or the next day. And in many sort of, if you look at studies of black societies, that the future in many black societies isn't it doesn't exist. You've got the now and you've got the past, but not the future. And because you got thrown in prison in the past for committing a theft, it doesn't mean you will be in the future, because the future hasn't happened yet, and then it could be different, and so on. So it's very different. But they're also a much bigger thing that occurs in third world societies. And bear in mind that a lot of the migrants are being brought into the West are third world peasants. They're not the sophisticated city people who are urbanized and all that, have been in white collar jobs, and they're not those sort of people that are being brought in. There's a few of those, but not very many. There's even 5% of the total of the Australian migrant intake that are, urban, sophisticated, first world educated city dwellers. It would be 5% at the most, and most of those are white anyway. So for the most part, they're bringing in third world peasants that live in rural villages, whether it be in Bangladesh or the Philippines or rural China or rural India. It doesn't matter, rural Africa. They come from third world societies. They have a very different view of property ownership and owning anything. And many of these villages live what we would sort of see as a communist lifestyle, where they share whatever they have. And when they look at coming to the West, these third world peasants, they're coming to the West, they look how much the West has. If we go there, those people will share everything they have with us, because if they came to our village, we would share what we have with them. The difference is, of course, that in the third world, they're living hand to mouth, almost as hunter-gatherers or close to it. And they're living in, grass huts or little huts, made up of sheets of corrugated iron that they've tied together with rope, this sort of thing. They live on rubbish tips, and so they have a very different concept of ownership of anything and of sharing and what it means. And when they come to the West, they look, but you people have so much. Look what you have. You have so much. Why won't you share it with us? And if it's not shared to the extent that these peasants think it should be, remember they come to the first world country and they see people living in nice houses, driving nice cars, wearing nice clothes, and they say, well, I should have that. You should be sharing that with me. I should have the same as what you have. And they don't understand, working and earning money, and even the concept of money is beyond a lot of them. So they come to the West with a very now. These people, they're not given say 12 months of acclimatization. They're not put in a halfway refugee camp or halfway immigration camp where they're schooled, diligently and rigorously on Western values and Western societal structures and these sort of things. They're just they come straight out of their third world village, living hand to mouth, hunter gatherer, and then plonk straight into the middle of a first world city. Now, and they're expected to understand and acclimatise. Not only that, they're brought over with so many of their own countrymen, their own fellow Bangladeshis or wherever, and put into the middle of a first world country, that they arrive with this entitlement. It's not entitlement as we would sort of understand it of the entitled brat. It's not that. I'm entitled to share. You must share what you have with me, because that's my understanding of the world. That's how we live. And rather than them changing to the Western concept of societal structure, they expect that their concept of social structure, and bear in mind, a lot of them got an IQ of 70 or 80, that they can't even comprehend anything outside of their grass hut village. So when they go into a store, it could be a grocery store, could be a Walmart or whatever. They go into the store like Home Depot or something. They go into the store and they in their perception, everything in that store is common property. Now, sure, the white man says you have to pay for it, but the white man isn't sharing his money with me, or not enough of it, not as much as I want, so he can share his goods and his services with me. And if he won't, I'll just take it, because that's just. In our village, we share everything. And so if I have to take stuff from there, then that's sharing. I'm just making the white man share it with me. That's the same as you know, and so they have a very different concepts of all of these sorts of things. So they don't see shoplifting as stealing. They just see that as, well, I'm just making sure that you share your stuff with me. What's wrong with that? And you still, that's very much the view pretty much all over Africa, or certainly the sub-Saharan Africa. And so if you look, and if you look at the behavior of, say, the American blacks that have been in America for, as in, you know, the multi-generations, at least 200 and some up to 400 years in the United States, living amongst white people and white social structures and white economic structures. And still they see this in the same way that, well, why won't you share it with me? Why can't I have what you have? I'll make you share it with me. If I have to kill you to get you to share it with me, then I'll do that as well. And stealing is, well, it's not really stealing. So they don't perceive it that way, and that needs to be understood. So you know, these people who are coming here being plucked, you know, IQ 70 illiterate peasants plucked out of the middle of the third world and dumped into the middle of the first world, you know, without any sort of climatization process, that's guaranteed to create dramas that don't need to be dealt with if there was a better selection of migrants or there was a more intensive acclimatization process. And, you know, both are needed, really, I believe. But why would any country want to get third world peasants and bring them into the first world when they're going to be nothing but trouble? I mean, sure, there's going to be some that'll work it out and fit in, but not very many. And many of them will, in one way or another, be nothing but a problem. Even their children and grandchildren will be a problem. So this is why I will assert, this is why there are, wherever you see mass migration from the third world, you see this idea of, you know, we share everything, so why won't you? We'll make you share it with us if we have to. And stealing isn't really stealing. We're just making sure you do share stuff with us. And that's their attitude. So they seem quite bewildered when they get caught for shoplifting or taken to court. Well, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just making sure you share your stuff with me. That's all. And so they don't see the criminality in ownership and paying for things and so on, which is why they don't make good citizens and good workers, and why it's an absurd, self-destructive policy to bring them into the first world. So now this is even the same for Indigenous Australians. There was a company that was allocated for government funds to open up like grocery stores in some of the remote Aboriginal communities in Australia to make sure that, again, there's no food desert. They've got access to, there's a claim that they have insufficient diet. So, okay, well, why is that? Well, I've got to travel too far to get to the grocery store. We'll fix that with taxpayer dollars. We'll open up a grocery store in the middle of fucking nowhere well, there's only white managers in the grocery store. Oh, we can't have that. Get rid of those Nazi white managers. We have to put Indigenous Australian managers in there, and that'll fix things. No racism. But the view is that the manager of the store, or even an employee, could be someone just sweeping the floor. The tribe that Aboriginal person comes from, the tribal members will come to the store and they'll expect everything for free. Because that's how they are. They share everything in the tribe. So if you're working there, that, you know, at this store, that means you sort of have, in effect, ownership of everything in it, which means you can share it with your tribe, and it's not stealing for them to come and help themselves. They're just the tribe sharing what they have, and what's wrong with that? And so they end up, you know, after a short time, they end up closing the grocery store because the theft is off the charts, but no one's willing to do anything about it to stop it, because that would be racist. So there are a number of issues here, but if you know, looking at the idea of theft, they don't see it as theft, and they can't get their heads around the idea of being theft. Why do you have all that stuff on display? Why are you showing off all that stuff if you don't want me to help myself to it, and if you don't want to share it with me? You're the bad people by not sharing it with me. And so this is, until that's addressed as an issue, I can't see the situation changing or being adequately addressed. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.